Welcome to another installment of the United Way's Community Impact Series. My name is Katie Gallagher, and I'm the marketing specialist at the United Way of the Lewis and Clark area. With us today, we have two guests. So we have Commissioner Good-Geise, welcome.
Thank you, happy to be here.
Thanks, and Lieutenant Rob Lawler with the Salvation Army.
Thanks for having me.
And so the topic of today's show is actually VOAD, which stands for Voluntary Organizations Active in Disaster, and specifically the Lewis and Clark chapter, I guess you could say, of VOAD. So to start, can we talk a little bit about what VOAD is? Either one of you can field that question.
Well, VOAD came to Lewis and Clark County as a result of a meeting that Paul Spangler, who is our Disaster and Emergency Services Coordinator, and I attended in Billings, and we rode back from Billings together, and so I had him for 3.5 hours, and I was able to persuade him that this VOAD idea, which had been presented at that conference, might be a good idea to do in Lewis and Clark County. Mm-hmm. And you know, we go through all these sessions, but that one was absolutely the best attended session of the 3 days, and it centers on what VOADs do is make sure that in a disaster, that helping agencies know each other, know what each other's services and capabilities are, what their limitations are, so that they're not exchanging business cards in the middle of a disaster. Mm-hmm. Public safety is job one for any elected official. And so the VOAD was established here in Lewis and Clark County. We're one of the few counties in Montana that has one, so that when some sort of disaster would strike, our many helping agencies would be able to work together in a coordinated fashion.
Yeah, and so there's VOADs, there's a state VOAD, correct, right, and a national VOAD. So right, organizations like the Salvation Army are active in VOAD here at the local level, but also at the national level. And we know that all disasters start and end locally. And so it's really great that we have that local framework. So Rob, you're the chair of VOAD?
Yeah, as
right,
one of the organizations, part of the VOAD, mm-hmm, somehow I said, hey, I'd like to be involved, and someone said, well, if you're going to be involved, why don't you kind of be leadership of that? Yeah. And it's kind of interesting because we're starting from scratch. Mm-hmm. I kind of found in looking at VOADs, the national webpage and some other, they're vastly different from state to state, county to county. And so we're kind of going along and seeing what we will mean to our community here. And one of the things that kind of inspires me is I know in Ohio a couple years ago when they had some natural disaster, there was firemen making sandwiches. Wow. That is wonderful. But I think we'd love our firemen to do something a little more than making sandwiches, yeah, where voluntary organizations could take over and do that. And because I don't really know how to put a fire out or rescue, mm-hmm, someone, but I know how to make a sandwich. And mm-hmm, so the Salvation Army is actually really good at that. Yeah. And so that's where we want to get those agencies who have skill sets, mm-hmm, coordinated so we can help our county and state officials.
All right. Oh, sorry, go ahead.
Well, one of the things I was going to say is that one of the earlier VOAD meetings that we had there were churches and different, like the Salvation Army was there, and all different sorts of helping organizations. But one of the things that we did right from the get-go was that we had people list the kinds of resources that they had. For example, we found one church that had sort of almost like a commercial kitchen where they could help with food preparation, mm-hmm, on a long-term basis. So they had that facility. They had some volunteers, but one of the things that they didn't have if they were going to be doing for a large group like that would be like quality control that maybe the health department might be able to help with. But at the time that we had that meeting, nobody really knew that that particular church had that ability to serve in that way. So when we get an inventory of all of these resources, because we have vast resources here, the main job of the VOAD is to make sure that those are used most efficiently.
Okay, and so who's involved? So you're talking about definitely feeding responders and potentially evacuees in a wildfire or a flooding scenario or an earthquake in our community. So who else is involved? Do you have feeding? Do you have sheltering groups that are participating?
Yeah, we have feeding, sheltering groups, all the way to veterinary and pet mm-hmm, housing. So we have pretty much the wide variety. Even counseling, mm-hmm, in the time of crisis. Okay. And so pretty much everyone out there, and like Commissioner Geise said, there's all kinds of resources out there, but getting us to to kind of figure that out, and a place where the county or the state can call not all the organizations, but a group of organizations and say, hey, this is what we need, and within the VOAD, we're able to just take care of that. And we can be organized enough to handle that need. So.
Yeah.
And the way that they approach that is like you might have an individual. It might be an 11-year-old girl who might be hungry, have no home, her dog is lost, and her mom is missing. So we would try to center on the needs of individuals, and then we have this array of sources that we can go to fit people's needs. Now I just use the example of one child, but you can see where as a group you would know that they might need, some counseling, they might need help even with getting to school, any of those kinds of things. And the kinds of disasters that we're talking about could be an earthquake, it could be a flood, it could be a fire, it could be almost anything that's either man-made or something that is as a result of a natural disaster. So we try to be ready for all those eventualities.
Yeah, it's a great reminder during wildfire season, too. I know the fire out west of town must have been a few weeks ago now or a week ago. For the animals and livestock is something that we definitely need to consider here in Lewis and Clark County.
Right, and I think that fire was not even 1% contained, and we had a local vet who offered her services to take care of animals who were displaced by the fire.
Yeah.
I mean, people in Lewis and Clark County are great. They're very generous, they're very helpful, but what we need to just make sure that we use their services in the best way possible.
Yeah, and I know it's not VOAD's mission, but citizen preparedness as well, being key to mitigating the effects of the disaster.
And actually it is. As the VOAD, that includes volunteers. If we could get volunteers connected with groups or agencies, whether it be their church, and we can get their church to sit on the VOAD with us, or Salvation Army, Red Cross, who already sat there, and we can get volunteers connected with them so that their time of disaster, there isn't a flood of volunteers who aren't trained or are not sure what they can do. One of the hardest things for our emergency personnel is when there is something and a flood of volunteers show up who don't have, not sure what to do.
Yeah.
And they're not sure what level of activity they're able to do. Someone might not be physically able to sandbag, but that's what the county needs in their mind right now. We need to, as a VOAD, we've talked a lot about in how we get volunteers plugged in as well. So.
Sure, they're called spontaneous volunteers, and there's certainly a blessing in times of crisis. But those we need to inventory their skills as well, and make sure that they're used in the best way possible.
Yeah, and there's actually a website out there. I know it won't be on the screen, but respond.mt.gov is run by the Governor's Office of Community Service, but it's trying to start informing people what volunteering and donating responsibly is. A lot of time cash donations during times of disaster to the Red Cross, to the Salvation Army, to response agencies are in fact better than material donations. We hear the stories out of Sandy Hook after that tragedy was tons of teddy bears, and they eventually had warehouses of teddy bears instead of maybe monetary help for families that needed counseling and things like that.
Not so much for somebody who lost their house and needs a new countertop or something like that. Yeah, you're exactly right.
Yeah, so respond.mt.gov, and then also to put on the screen is the Facebook page for Lewis and Clark County Emergency Management. So if folks want to get in touch with VOAD, do you suggest that they call somebody, or who should they talk to if they want to affiliate with a local group ahead of a disaster to be involved with VOAD or volunteer?
They could call the county, Paul Spangler, or they could call me at the Salvation Army, which is 442-8244, or the Red Cross. There's quite a few other agencies. Maybe check if they're interested, maybe connecting with their local church or a favorite charity that might help in this area. Food Share is with us. They could contact them as well and come in that way. Pretty much just make it known, and there shouldn't be a problem. So.
All right, and you guys meet quarterly or monthly?
So it's quarterly right now.
Okay.
I'm trying to remember, we just had a meeting this summer, I think it was in July.
Okay.
And then it's every quarterly. So It's a Wednesday at like 2 p.m.
All right, and is it in the basement of the
Of the
law enforcement
EOC?
building?
Mhm.
All right,
Yes.
and so Paul's number, I know it by heart, 447-8285. So for any of the folks out there, if you want to get involved, Paul needs volunteers as well to staff the Emergency Operations Center in times of disaster. So give Paul a call, give Rob a call at the Salvation.
Call us at the county.
Yeah, and just say the word VOAD and somebody will get you to the right person to match your skill set probably, right? If you love animals, talk to the Humane Society or one of the local veterinary clinics in town. Food share.
Especially those who have certified trained expertise in areas, maybe counseling, licensed social workers, things like that. Obviously, doctors are probably already plugged in with the hospital and stuff. But yeah, some of those that we're not sure who's out there, we can use all those specialists. So.
Okay. Anything else you want to add before we end today?
Well, I'm really excited about this, and like I say, Lewis and Clark County is in the forefront in the state of Montana. I believe only one other county is doing this, but we have a slightly different take. And it's something that you always hope for the best and prepare for the worst, and that's the job of VOAD, making sure that our precious resources are allocated just right.
Yes, very important during times of chaos when people need help. So. Thank you guys for joining me today. I really appreciate it. And I look forward to seeing where VOAD goes. I know United Way's at the table, and we look forward to seeing how we can help coordinate volunteers or wherever our expertise might fit in. So look forward to seeing where it goes.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks.